not involved in any way. As a matter of fact, he was standing on the first floor watching the parade.
Using unprecedented modern-day digital computer technology, Larry Rivera presents scientific evidence which in any court of law would exonerate Lee Oswald of the assassination of President John F. Kennedy. Rivera meticulously takes the reader through the intricacies of digital overlays which prove that Lee was standing in the book depository doorway while the assassination was taking place, that the backyard photos were cleverly manufactured to frame him, and how the 3D program Blender can recreate Dealey Plaza was on 22 November 1963, so we can finally determine where JFK was really shot that fateful day. As if this were not enough, Rivera reveals what really happened on Elm Street as recently transcribed interviews with the motorcycle escort officers who were closest to JFK that day describe a heretofore unknown version of the events that shook our nation to its core and affected the history of the world forever. Don't miss it.
Hi, this is Gary King. If you're interested in the book, then go to patriotradiobooks.com. That's patriotradiobooks.com.
Hi, this is Gary King. Quick heads up. All 200 shows deleted by YouTube will soon be available at patriotradiobooks.com. Go there and sign up with our email list, and we'll contact you as soon as it's available. Enjoy the JFK show. All right, welcome to the new JFK show, number 236. And yes, we still are calling it the new JFK show because of the new research that we do. And mainly Larry, as usual, he's rolling over the JFK community.
We could call it the Something New JFK show.
And something new every week, JFK show. So Larry's got more. He's pulling more out of the documents than we ever thought possible. And we're going to let him go ahead and bust out a screen share and take you for a ride.
That's a great intro. We did this, some of this we did at the Olney conference, but it just, as you keep plowing through the documents, you keep finding more and more information and more evidence, of this whole situation here in Mexico City. I think you can write a few books, on the new documents, as we saw before with the with that all that stuff that we did on the Mexico City thing on Sylvia Duran, okay, yeah. and Leering 3 and Leering 4 and all that stuff. But anyway, the code name for the photographic operation. Remember, we touched upon this briefly, before, but and we did a show where we went through the Liemti and the Lienvoy operations, those projects, which were the Lienvoy had to do with the wiretapping of the telephone lines of the Cuban embassy, the consulate, and the Soviet embassy, which had a code name of Limerick. Okay, and we're gonna show you guys a couple of things here, and within this whole operation, and the common ground that I found here is that the Mexico City station used Mexican nationals. They recruited Mexican nationals to do all this dirty work and compilation of wiretaps and photographs, and videos. I don't know about videos, but photographic evidence, and churning all this information to create policy, and response, in the spy versus spy world, that was going on at the time, where the Soviet Union and the U.S. were involved in this Cold War situation. So, in Mexico City was one of the main stages. And why was that going on is because of Cuba, and the U.S. pressuring Mexico to break all diplomatic relations with Cuba. And remember, a couple of shows ago, we went over those really ridiculous cables where they wanted to create an event, sort of like a Northwoods, type of thing.
Flag, like happens every day.
Flag, and put like a device under in a car, you know, and then blame it on the Cubans, you know, and stuff, you know.
All right, so look, everybody this is in-depth, really deep research. Now, if you want to go back and check the shows out that Larry's talking about, you have to go to 153 News, and actually it's under my name, Gary King. It's Gary King Channel. Or you can just type in JFK. But all these shows from 185 to 235, so that's a lot of information. So when Larry's just blowing past this stuff, you might have to go back and watch the show, and you know, to catch on to a lot of this stuff.
So you're saying there are 50 shows that are available there under your name, Gary King, at 153news.net.
Yeah, and then we're gonna get the other shows, 185. We're gonna make them available on a USB for download, because we cannot put those up. Those will be taken down, especially with Don in there. You know, they'll definitely be pulling the plug on those shows. So we're just gonna have that available to people where we, you know, just get it to them by email, or they could download it. But
Larry, you want to do a screen share?
A lot of people ask me about those shows, you know, Gary, and I understand that YouTube is, you know, sort of lightening up on the grip there, you know, and, you know, maybe we'll be able, especially the ones that are the classic ones, you know, like the JFK Horseman 1 and 2.
yeah.
Which,
that's what we'll do. We'll put up the classic ones, but there's some of them that we're just going to get taken
away, identified and stuff like that. So anyway, what I have named this guy, the big fish that got away. Okay, and this is, you know, I think we touched upon this, you know, before the only conference, but I've posted, you know, a much more comprehensive article here, and with you know,
you're doing a great job with your blog, Larry. You're doing a great job with your blog.
Thank you. But this guy who went under the radar, you know, and I've been in touch with Dan Hardway, you know, and maybe if we have a chance, you know, we can also show our audience here, you know, some of the actual lawsuits, FOIA lawsuits that have been filed by Dan Hardway, Robert Blakey, and Eddie Lopez, precisely regarding, you know, a lot of this scenario here in Mexico City. But notwithstanding, you know, I have found so many documents, you know, that just go way beyond. You know, I wish they would have, you know, spoken to me before, you know, and to present, you know, some of these actual documents, which really prove my point of what was going on in Mexico City and who were the players, you know. Before, remember when we did the John McCone thing, you know, where we were putting names and faces.
Oh, Larry, that's the best show that we've ever made.
Yeah, and this is exactly what we're doing with what went on in Mexico City, because, you know, if you're going to say that Lee Oswald went to the Mexico City, and he went to the Soviet embassy, and he went to the Cuban embassy and the consulate, and he saw these people, and all these supposed telephone conversations went down, and all these photographs were taken of him, you know, which obviously do not exist, you know. But now with all the documents, what's going on is we're getting a much better, more defined picture of who was actually involved, you know, in this whole situation here, you know, and putting names and faces together, you know, to give you a much better picture and idea of you know, who was running this operation and who were the actual operatives. I think that's the best word here.
One of the rare dual citizens when it's an American-Mexican, huh, Dr. Fetzer?
Yes, yes.
Oh, that's ideal. And another thing that I've noticed, remember when we did the Leering 3 last year, or, you know, whatever, year and a half ago, it always seems to be that their perfect scenario was to recruit a couple, you know, husband and wife, you know, and that way they would be compromised, you know, to follow the directives, you know, and stay in line. However, being Mexico the way Mexico is, you know, that's very, very difficult to do, you know, with all the corruption and everything, you know, that was going on, especially with Lee Envoy, you know, with the wiretapping and stuff. But anyway, I don't want to get sidetracked, you know, but this guy that I want to talk about tonight is the big fish that got away, okay? And his profile is just so incredible, that I just, cannot fathom or understand how the HSCA did not catch up with this guy. But then again, it's very easy to understand, because had the CIA been, able, or had they produced this guy and brought him towards to be interviewed by the HSCA, he would have revealed, he would have, given away the crown jewel, of this whole thing about Mexico City,
Wow.
And obviously his name, and we mentioned this guy before, and I just think that this guy needs to be kept in focus here, because he was a very, very important cog, in the Mexico City operation, which Win Scott ran with his lieutenant and Good Pasture, who we have identified and who went by the pseudonym of a man, Bobby Riggs, Robert Riggs. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Remember, we talked about that before, and we're gonna, revisit that that information here tonight. And go ahead, Dr. Fetzer. I think.
New ARB documents reveal how the CIA made sure a key player in Mexico City photographic surveillance project was never interviewed by the HSCA. Does the name Raymond Gerende ring a bell in JFK assassination circles? Probably not. Gerende's real name was Ramon Joseph Alvarez, and the newly released documents tell quite a story about this dual citizen, American-Mexican, Mexico City CIA asset. His CIA cryptonym was Lempy 1. Before I continue, it's important to understand what Project Lempy was about. It was an operation whereby the Soviet embassy was photographed from different angles and perspectives as people went in and out on a daily basis. The code name for the Soviet embassy was Limerick, USSR. This operation went hand in hand with a telephone wiretapping project known as L'Envoy, which covered both Soviet and Cuban installations in Mexico City. As a result of the surveillance, the Mexico City station of the CIA should have been able to produce photographic and/or audio evidence of Lee Oswald visiting these installations when he allegedly went there in late September, early October 1963 for a transit visa to return to the Soviet Union.
That's such a basic premise, of the case against Oswald, Jim.
Yeah, he went to Mexico to get to the Cuban embassy to get a visa to make his escape back to the USSR by way of Cuba.
Yeah, and set up, all this, legend, and that all the trace, of him, going there and talking, to all these people supposedly, and this and that, But when you look at the information and you look at the evidence, it just doesn't pan out. So this here is one of the first documents that I found, and it gives you the exact definition of what Liemti was all about here. And here in this is 20 February 1964. Okay, and this is a progress report from March and April of 1964. And it tells us that the Liemti project is designed to collect operational information on the Limerick installation and personnel as well. And not only there at the embassy, Jim, but also in their homes, wherever they went, wherever they lived, they would go and establish, this surveillance, okay? And as well as targets of opportunity through stationary mobile photographic coverage. I mean, really important stuff here we're talking about. In addition, the project provides the means for investigating leads from the above noted coverages, as well as other station sources. Liemti supports other station operations through the renting of safe houses, providing and servicing post office box letter drops, conducting counter surveillance and investigation, and performing related tasks. This is really important stuff, So, that's why I believe this is, one of the most important documents here, because it establishes, where this project is in the hierarchy of what's going on in Mexico City. Okay, obviously photographic evidence is very, very important, and also wiretapping. Okay, so that's why, you know, this is such an important document. So here, the name Gerende.
The name Gerende first makes its appearance in the newly christened Esham cable, which opens up a whole new can of worms in the Mexico City part of the JFK investigation. The following passage from this cable, dated 25 September 1964, tells us that only remaining hope would be to have Esham prevail on the commission, not only retouch photos, but also retouch face to a degree obviously not identifiable with Ruby, but also not with actual subject of photo. And it suggests the importance of keeping a lid on this supposed photographic proof of Lee Oswald, supposedly being at the Soviet embassy in late September 1963. New documents also revealed that this Esham, who was on the commission, was none other than Alan Dulles, and I'll cover those documents in a future post. Note the term RIBAT means extreme sensitivity, and the term GP Floor means Oswald related.
Right here, I'm pointing at RIBAT.
RIBAT
means extremely sensitive, and GP Floor, this is a code name for Lee Oswald, you know. And this is the cable, which is a smoking gun here, you know. And it says clearly the only remaining hope would appear to get Esham prevail on the commission, not only retouch background and photos. I mean, Jim, you know, this
is such a blatant giveaway that they're fabricating evidence, Larry.
You know, and then not identifiable with Ruby. What does that suggest to you? That Ruby,
they were trying to suggest that Ruby was in Mexico City too?
Obviously.
They were together or something?
You know? I mean, what, you know, and later on, you know, we're able to discern that Esham is Alan Dulles, you know, and he's on the commission, you know, but, you know, I mean, you know, this needs to really be digested because, you know, what does this all mean here?
Boy, it would be good if you can read it and when you say Esham, say Alan Dulles. And when you get to, you know, the different ones, if you could just put in, you know, what it really is.
But look at point 3. If neither suppression nor effective alteration possible, station plans to evacuate.
Wow.
Limited, Lyric, and Lacala are the actual safe, the base houses of where I'm going to show you guys now, you know, what those were all about. Those were the actual base houses where the photographic equipment was positioned to cover the Soviet embassy, you know, 2 in front, 1 from behind. Okay, so that's what this is all about. And what they're saying here is that, okay, we have these photos of a supposed Lee Oswald, okay, and it gets leaked out to the world, but obviously it's not Lee Oswald. You know, it's a husky guy in his 30s, you know, blah, 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 you know, and okay, now what's going on here? You know, how can you guys say that it's Lee Oswald when it's very obvious, even J. Edgar Hoover, and I'm going to show you guys a couple of documents, you know, where Hoover gets involved into this, you know, and you know, suppression or effective alteration, you know. Wow, you know, isn't that kind of, haven't we?
The way you put this here, really, this cable is the
manipulate photos?
Caught with your pants down in public. How can you explain or hide this? The second page is even more revealing, where the urgency of the situation is clearly defined.
And this is the underline, you know.
They wouldn't manipulate any photos.
Yeah. Beginning with limited. Limited was like I said, the one base house where camera equipment was stationed, you know. I'm going to show you guys exactly where it was positioned. 25 September and others, 26 and 27 September. This is 1964 when the Warren Commission is almost finishing here, you know. And now all of a sudden they come out with these photographs, you know, of a supposed Lee Oswald, you know, and, you know, the shit hits the fan here, Jim. You know, so Scantling and Gerende are prominently mentioned here and who stand to be personally compromised in any serious police investigation being consulted 25 September for advice on best way to approach base house base housekeepers with least amount of alarm and greatest reassurance. This is like cover your ass, it's going to hit the fan, and we all need to know where we're at, when it does. Okay. No, now look at this. Will be offered financial incentives were pertinent. All that personnel. Okay. Now P. Bruman is Cuba. Okay. Leonian, okay, is also another photographic base house. Okay. And what they're doing here is everybody's going, they want to scatter everybody, get the hell out, so that there is no evidence left behind, or none of these Mexican nationals who are the ones that work in these base houses, okay, because they know that they are very susceptible to being captured, interrogated, and they will spill the beans, okay, once that happens. So that's why this cable is so incredibly important, and it's very revealing, and that's where the rest of Liemti, falls, from that, from this cable, So Scanlon, you can go here.
Well, my source in Toronto tells me this is Walter Kopinski, Topinski, who is the cousin of Clyde Forshaw, who was always identified as a shooter in the Bergola area.
Yeah, well, maybe, but they're also, the cable says, it could also be, Jack Ruby, I don't know about that, but, how does Ruby get thrown?
Like Jack Ruby.
How does Ruby get thrown into the mix here? When
that's very odd, man, very, very odd.
That they're going to throw Jack Ruby into the mix here, when that they can alter, features and stuff like that, So anyway, up here, Scanling and Gerende.
Scanling and Gerende were major players in the photographic surveillance operation known as Lumpy. But what was this all about? The CY cable has to do with the famous photographs taken of Lee Oswald, supposedly coming out of the Soviet embassy. Why they even pick somebody who looks so unlike Lee Oswald is beyond me, Gary. I mean, totally different, totally different physical type, doesn't look remotely like him. Even Edgar Hoover rejected this as early as 26 November 1963 in conversation with John McCone.
And I'll just highlight it right here, where we are trying to do right here.
Yeah, we're trying to do as fast as we can so we can dispel various wild rumors that have been circulating as to whether this man was the right man, etc., who fired the gun. But there's no question he is the right man. How absurd. There are a lot of aspects we have dug up, friends, with regard to the matter in Mexico City. We have now found that the photograph that was taken was not that of Oswald. We do find from our informant down there that Oswald did call at the embassy that day, and the informant is giving us the conversation that he had. He wanted to get a permit to go back to Russia, and the Cuban embassy couldn't give him the permit. The Soviet embassy stated it would take 3 weeks. He had, I think, a visitor's permit for about a week or 10 days. That's why he came back to the United States.
I mean, Hoover didn't even have it right. He was just he was just ad-libbing there,
Right.
Yeah.
Hoover was a bit of an idiot.
Yeah, I think with Jack Ruby coming up and all this, just really reinforces how much a patsy he was as well.
Yeah, I agree. I have to agree, Gary. How we that's I agree. I agree with that, Gary.
Raymond Gerende, a.k.a. Ramon Joseph Alvarez, a.k.a. Lempi 1, appears to have been the big fish that got away. I will explain. The Lempi project recruited Mexican nationals to execute photographic surveillance of the Soviet embassy under the auspices of the Mexico City CIA station run by Win Scott, a.k.a. Willard Curtis. In 1978, Ann Goodpaster, a.k.a. Robert or Bobby Riggs, drove this diagram to illustrate the Lempi operation, whereby 3 strategically placed photo base houses were equipped with photographic equipment to facilitate the surveillance. They were codenamed Limited, Lyric, and Lacala, and fell under the Lempi umbrella.
This is the first time that we actually see, something like this, where we're actually getting, okay, for example, she goes number 1 Limited, okay, and that's right here, right in front of the main gate.
Yeah.
Okay? Number 2, the Lyric, okay, at an angle, about a 45-degree angle of the main gate, and Lacala which is from the behind. And they actually went and they rented these apartments, and they installed, their Mexican nationals in there, and they installed all this high-powered, very sophisticated photographic equipment, Jim, to get all this. And they also had a photo truck, also available. I'm going to show you guys now.
Okay, photograph everything in sight, but they didn't get Lee.
Yeah, right. So that's exactly my point. So then this is where Gerende comes in and how important he is in this whole scheme here.
Gerende's full background is contained in his 201 file, detailed in these documents pertain to a raise he received in 1965.
Now, his contract expires on 30 September 1965. Mexico City Station has recommended that the contract be extended for 1 year, and his salary goes up from $6,000 to $26,500. His last salary raise, 1 August 1963. Okay, there are sufficient funds. Okay, but what the point here is to establish who this guy was. Here's his 201 number, his 201 file number. Okay, his wife, and we're going to talk about this woman because she is very important. This woman, defied, the CIA and even blackmailed the CIA. And I'm gonna, throw out, maybe some suppositions here, like why this could have happened. Okay, and this is his education. I mean, this is all, in his 201 file. 201 file is, very important in the CIA because it contains all of your background, your entire career. Okay, with the agency. This guy was English native and Spanish completely proficient, bilingual. Okay.
He went to American high school.
Yeah, and and so this guy was sort of like groomed, from very young, to be in this type of position, And here you go. He was recruited in March 1955, and he works. His career does not end until 1970. We're talking about 15 years. Now, 15 years is a long time in the agency, okay?
Yeah.
And to be involved in this photographic surveillance operation, and especially during the time where supposedly Lee Oswald went, and did all these things there in Mexico City, and for him to obviously have known, what was going on, if Lee went there or he did not, okay? If anyone would have been in the know, if anybody would have known if it was Lee, it would have been this guy. And that's my point, Jim, in this whole thing here. This guy was the top dog, okay? And so he's recruited, he's also used as the base housekeeper in an audio operation and processor of tapes. He excelled in this type of work because of his bilingual Spanish-English facility, and more importantly, due to his diversified experience in clandestine operations. They actually sent him to Langley for a special training, okay? And it's all in his 201 file.
He's a spook from way back.
Very young. I mean, this guy must have been like 21, 22, and they sent him to Langley, to groom him, to prepare him, So,
it must have been very smart because I have a couple of friends that had really high IQs, and they tried to recruit those guys.
Well, especially if you're bilingual, Gary, Spanish and English. That's Now look at this. Since 1958, his primary use has been as a main cutout principal agent to a group of photographic base houses targeted against the Soviet embassy and one mobile photographic truck. He processes the raw data, okay, and services the majority of the accommodation addresses used by the station. He has contributed significantly to the AMROD operation. He performs all of his tasks in a professional manner. This guy is the deal, okay? He's well suited to intelligence work and plans to make Kubark his career. A lifer, okay? Yeah. So anyway, he works full-time for Kubark. Kubark obviously is CIA, Cover company requires very little time. So actually, you know, this guy is, you know, full-time, you know, CIA asset, okay? So that's why, you know, this guy is important. Raymond Gerende, also known as Ramon Alvarez, okay? And let's dig a little bit deeper into what this guy was all about. Go ahead, Dr. Fetzer.
Furthermore, the importance of Gerende in this scheme cannot be understated and is clearly illustrated by this organizational chart found in his 201 file released 26 April 2018.
Organizational chart, Gerende, right here.
Yeah.
Look at this. You know, everything goes up, you know, up the ladder, right? And he is the man here, okay? As you can see, everything, and this is the Soviet embassy down here. We talked about Licala, Lyric, Limited, the photo truck, the jersey, okay? They're all concentrating on the Soviet embassy, okay? And he is the one who goes up beyond him, obviously, when Scott, well, and you know something, the compartmentalization is so intense here that he never even deals with Win Scott. He deals with a buffer who happens to be and Goodpasture, okay? And that's what, and you know, here again, you know, I don't think we have to really, you know, go into more detail because these are more documents that support, you know, my contention here of, you know, the importance of Raymond Gerende, you know, and, you know, it's just overwhelming, you know, and this one is really interesting because, you know, follow the money, right?
Yeah, there it is.
Now, who's in the top? And who makes the most money here?
Yeah.
Raymond Gerende, okay? So, and guess what? This is what he looked like. This is the only known photograph of Gerende, also known as Raymond Alvarez, also known as Lee MT1. I missed the one there. It should have been Lee MT1. Okay. Yeah.
Interesting face.
Yeah, very, I know. Very, you know.
Looks very sophisticated.
Yeah, yeah.
Average, everyday, somebody.
Yeah, yeah. Nothing out of the ordinary. You know, he would mingle, you know, he would. Like
these are the HSCA request cover pages of volumes 2 and 3 of his 201 file. At first glance, they appear innocuous enough to lead the reader to conclude the HSCA had no interest in Gerende. There is nothing further from the truth. Note under the column signature of review and official, not reviewed by the HSCA.
This is volume 2. When you get into the situation where you got more than one volume, which means, you know, multiple pages, you know, here we got, you know, volume 2, and we're going to see volume 3. There is obviously a volume 1, which Dan Hardway has been trying to find. You know, I've provided him with both of these, you know, and, but regardless, you know, volume 2 is 1956 to 1963. This 1965, this one covers our area of interest, okay? Yeah. And right here, I mean, I cannot overstate this here. Not reviewed by the HSCA, okay? Yeah. And it's a signature of the reviewing official, okay? It's like, wait a minute, this guy, you know, the HSCA had absolutely no interest in this guy, okay? And here's volume 3, the cover page of his 201 file, okay? Again, brand new documents, ladies and gentlemen. This is what we're dealing with here, okay? February 1966 to 1978, okay? He retires in 1970, and I'm going to show you guys under what circumstances he retires, okay? And so guess what? Dan Hardway starts to read the Lee Empty file, okay, at Langley. And he stumbles upon Raymond Gerende's name, and he figures, I mean, it's very easy for him to figure out that this guy was an important, you know, cog in the project. Hardway spent 6 months studying Lee Empty, which by the time the HSCA got underway had been renamed Katie Factor. And this is the, you know, the document which shows, you know, the evidence here. So here, by the time that Dan Hardway gets to Langley, it's already, and look at, you know, notice, how surreptitious this happens here. Now it's Katie Factor. Before it had been Lee Empty. Okay, so now they've changed the name, from Lee Empty to Katie Factor, but it's still the same thing. And it says right here, Katie Factor project until 1970, encrypted as the Lee Empty project, was initially approved in 1958 to provide financial material support for visual and photographic surveillance operations targeted against the Soviet embassy in Mexico City. Okay, so guess what? So Dan goes over here and he spends 6 months studying Lee Empty. Okay, Dan Hardway. Look at this guy. Look at this. Dan Hardway. He comes in and checks out the file. And I don't know if you guys remember that Hardway and Eddie were not allowed to photocopy any documents. The only thing that they were allowed to do was actually, handwrite, notes, on what they had seen, and even then these notes had to be passed on to a babysitter. That's where Joanides comes in.
Larry, this is so insulting. I mean, it's so blatant how the CIA is covering its ass. It's just awful.
Yeah, I know. And so, so then, the obvious reaction, from Dan Hardway and company, and Eddie and Blakey and Cromwell here is, wait a minute, this guy might be important here. Cornwell, I said Cornwell, Gary Cornwell. The obvious reaction was to try to find and interview Gerende in Mexico City, where he still lived at the time. Okay, we're talking about right here, and this is where, I present these documents in chronological order. Okay, 16th of May, 1978. Okay, and this is where the committee is sending 4 staff members, Gary Cornwell, Harold Leap, Dan Hardway, and Eddie Lopez. Okay, and look who are they looking for? It's right there, underlined in red. Raymond Joseph Alvarez, okay? And look how they bring down, his importance. Formerly operated a DDO photographic surveillance site, okay?
Operated all there were to him.
Yeah, where he was actually running, the operation, okay? So then we've got this 17th of May, 1978, and there's a meeting, with the CIA. And here again, his name pops up, Raymond Joseph Alvarez Durant. Okay, so, he's a person of interest to the HSCA. Okay, and then this is the one that really gets me, because here they actually misspell his name. Raymond, R-E-M-O-N-D, Joseph, and they interchange here his last names instead of being Alvarez, A-L-V-A, they go A-L-V-E, and
this cannot be accidental.
Of course not, so Alvarez and in Spanish, in Latin America, your first surname, last name is your father, and then your second is your mother's. So it would be Alvarez Durant. This would be his mother's, which in the U.S. is dropped altogether. So it would be Raymond Joseph Alvarez. But what they do is they bring his mother's surname in here to totally obfuscate, his identity. It's so funny. It doesn't. It's so obvious.
Yeah, so obvious. Yes.
And then this is a very interesting one, okay, where the HSCA defers to station judgment whether interviews with Raymond Joseph Alvarez Durant, okay, former safe house keeper. Now he's not running,
not even doing photographic, just a safe house.
Now he's just a safe house keeper, okay.
Right.
Yeah. So he's like gone down the ladder here, And then now, what did this is where the HSCA really starts to investigate. Wait a minute. We need to find out if the wiretaps and the photographs mesh. Okay, it's pretty obvious. If you have photographic evidence, you should also have wiretap evidence. Correct?
Yeah, it's just you should be able to queue them up together.
Right. Exactly. So, what did Oswald, the unidentified person, photographed outside Cuban embassy? Soviet embassies do while in Mexico City. HSCA is confused, okay, perplexed, okay, wait a minute, you know, by the inability to link photographs of the persons visiting the Soviet and Cuban embassies to teletaps, to the wiretaps. Obvious. I mean, it's obvious. You know, I would ask the same question. If I were sent to investigate, I would say, okay, you have these photographs of supposedly Oswald. You have a wiretapping operation going on. Okay, let's combine these two, right? And find out, you know, if they mesh, you know, if they coincide, you know? And that's a basic question, you know. And I think this is where, you know, the much maligned, you know, Blakey, you know, has to be maybe not completely exonerated, you know, because he's actually trying to find out what's going on in Mexico City, you know. Now, the HSCA has inquired if station, you know, obviously Win Scott can assist in, not with Scott, he's not there anymore, can assist in meetings with Mexican officials who are knowledgeable about this investigation. And I think I found this one down here to be especially interesting. Misters Hardway and Lopez are young researchers who are somewhat impetuous and free-spirited. Mr. Lopez is bilingual and has Mexican, Latin American appearance. All HSCA staffers fully cleared. Okay, wait a minute. Now, we're starting to get a little bit, you know, personal here, okay, with Eddie, especially, you know, and what's your take on this, Jim, here?
Well, they're trying to downgrade him.
Well, not only that, you know, he's like
young research is somewhat impetuous, as though they didn't know what they're talking about.
Yeah, and free-spirited, you know, where these guys, you know, they're actually trying to get to the truth. You know, don't forget that this
right. They got to find a way to discredit him.
Well, this is also, you know, following into the same thing as Joanides, because don't forget that Hardway and Lopez were the ones who were liaisoning with Joanides, you know, and they sent Joanides, you know, to overwhelm the Hardway and Lopez. But, you know, here, you know, what I'm perceiving here is that Hardway and Lopez actually want to investigate. They want to find out, you know, what's going on, you know.
Right,
and
so they had to find a way to put them in their place.
And they're trying to demean, you know, both of them, you know, as being hippies. First of all, you know, their parents at the time were like hippies, you know, and we've talked about that, you know, in the past, you know, long hair, you know, and stuff, you know. But anyway, then we have this other document here, and this has to do with Blakey, and Blakey is on to Gerende, okay, and it says here at a meeting this morning with HSCA Chief of Counsel Blakey, DDCI, Deputy Director of Central Intelligence, a really important guy, did not agree to provide direct access to Raymond Joseph Alvarez Durand. Alternative method of questioning Alvarez not accepted at this time by Blakey. You know, now
clearly they were keeping him in the closet.
Obviously, you know, and here what they want to do is, you know, and this is why I think this is the one cable that really exonerates Blakey in this whole thing, because Blakey, you know, wants to talk to this guy. He wants to know what Gerende knows about the photographic operation going on in Mexico City. Okay, and the CIA knows that this guy can spill the beans. I mean, it's pretty obvious. All right. Now, down here, it says station should be in position to locate Ramon Joseph Alvarez Durand on short notice. He's still available. An event decision made to make him available. In the event that the decision is made to make him available to the HSCA, I mean, that is so revealing right there. You know, it's like they are the ones that are going to decide if they're going to get, you know, if they're going to get their hands on
the fox guarding the hen house.
You know, if they're the ones that they're going to decide if the HSCA is going to get their hands on Gerende. And guess what? It never happens. That's why the whole thing here about the big fish that got away. So then this is the one that really blew me away. And go ahead, Doctor.
Finally, I ran across this passage contained in a letter to the HSCA Scott Breckenridge from the CIA's Robert Gambino, stating the following about Raymond Joseph Alvarez. There is no indication in his security file that he has previously been of interest to the HSCA when they were making all these inquiries.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Raymond Joseph Alvarez Durant, OS file 114926, reflects that Durant was born in New York City. Holds Mexican and American citizenship. Durant was employed as a contract agent from 1955 to 1970. During some of this period, he was assigned to Mexico City. There is no indication in his security file that he has previously been of interest to the HSCA. Just burying this guy as much as they can.
That is such bullshit there, Jim, you know. Okay, so let's talk about what did this guy know?
What secrets did Raymond Gerende harbor? Clearly, Gerende knew that Lee Oswald was never photographed near the Soviet embassy, and it was imperative to keep this under wraps. Lempe 19, a.k.a. Hester Roos de Alvarez. But there is more. It turns out that Alvarez's wife was also involved in the Lempe project and went by the cryptonym Lempe 19. The payroll report shown above says she was paid $1,000 a year for her services. Her true name was Hester Roos, and she was a Dutch national who married Alvarez in Mexico. They had 4 children altogether. As stated previously, Alvarez in turn had dual citizenship, American and Mexican. In the late 1960s, the Alvarez couple had a serious falling out and were involved in a very nasty divorce, which culminated in both of them being removed from the agency. Before this could be consummated, however, Hester decided to blackmail the agency for money, ostensibly over secrets that she knew and which they were deathly afraid she would reveal. Wow.
There it is. I mean, you know, you guys want to see a smoking gun, this is it.
There it is.
You try to read it?
Sure.
In station opinion, concern expressed by Lempe 19 for welfare herself and children per paragraph 3 reference partially paranoid and partially continuation attempted blackmail of J.K.
Lance. J.K. Lance is CIA.
Yeah, for money. Her position has always been that A. Gerende would like to kill her, and he has even tried to do so, and B. Gerende refused to pay any money to support her and her children. Gerende denies murder threats, except as rhetorical in the heat of past arguments prior to split, but admits to minimal support payments on grounds amount of support must be decided by courts. Until this is done, he refuses to make any commitment, meaning he's not giving her a penny.
Yeah.
2, since Lempe 19 blackmail has already succeeded to extent $2,500, doubt anything but large and unwarranted increase would have any desired effect. Suggest instead that either she be given payment in one lump sum or procedure proposed paragraph 2 CREF be followed. That sounds like taking her out. Believe she should be warned. Any violation of this agreement could result in canceling her visa.
Lady, you know, Lady Liberty, U.S. Okay, now.
They're obviously very troubled about her.
Oh, absolutely. You know, and what she knows about the Lempe project and this this bullshit about Lee Oswald being at the Soviet embassy, being photographed, you know, and everything, you know. So now this is what really gets me here. This action culminated in a secret agreement, which was signed 26 June 1970. And notice here, you know, Hester Roos, okay, she releases the U.S. government from any and all claims and demands of whatever nature which I or any member of my family has against the United States government, you know. I mean, this is real deep stuff here, you know. I agree to keep forever secret. Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah. I agree to keep forever secret the fact of my confidential relationship and that of other members of my family, specifically my husband, Raymond Alvarez Durant, with the United States government. I also agree to keep forever secret my knowledge of all persons, methods, and equipment which I acquired in the case of my relationship or that of my husband with the United States government.
Which is specifically Lempe, the photographic surveillance.
Yeah, right.
Okay, that's what this is all about, okay?
Well, I understand I am to receive a bonus payment amounting to $2,500 payable in 10 monthly installments of $250 beginning 31 July 1970. I further understand that payment of this sum is contingent upon full compliance with this secrecy agreement and that the United States government shall be the sole judge of such compliance. Furthermore, I specifically renounce any claim to any similar bonus or other payment made to any other member of my family, including that made to my husband, Raymond Gerende. This release and secrecy agreement is effective as of the date it is signed. I acknowledge that I've read it and I fully understand its meaning.
I mean, I cannot understand, this. We're talking about people who really knew what went down.
Yeah.
If Lee Oswald was photographed, Lee Oswald was there, and how important it was to keep all this hushed, under wraps.
Well, better to get $250 a month than a bullet in the head.
Yeah. No, but have you ever heard of anybody who actually got away with blackmailing the CIA?
I don't know. It's pretty extraordinary, isn't it?
This
illustrates how the CIA extricated itself from all connections to its agents under the Lempe KD Factor project. By 1970, Gerende had been assigned the cryptonym KD Factor 2. By the way, as shown above, Lempe did not become KD Factor until 1970. Could that have been as a result of the Alvarez couple debacle?
I mean, what happens here is, they have this nasty divorce. It starts to become a very troubling situation, for the CIA, because this instability here, with one or the other could lead to one or the other, one of the press,
spilling the beans,
and doing, whatever they were going to do, and revealing what they knew about what was going on there in Mexico City in September, October 1963 regarding Lee Harvey Oswald. Okay. So here, basically, all agent terminations were accomplished in an amicable manner. No visible security risks were apparent. That's
you didn't actually have to take any of them out and shoot them.
Yeah. Yeah. Had it been Hitler, hey, it wouldn't even gone through all this,
These documents suggest the Alvarez couple, Lempe 1 and Lempe 19, were very important cogs in the photographic surveillance operation in Mexico City, which determined that Lee Oswald had been there. We could add falsely determined. The HSCA's inability to locate and review Raymond Gerende, a.k.a. Raymond Joseph Alvarez, a.k.a. Lempe 1, leads me to conclude that he truly was the big fish that got away.
Excellent.
Very, very good, Larry. I like it.
I just can't believe to the extent that they put it, him going to Mexico City. I mean, they fought it for 20 years beyond that. It's just amazing.
Well,
it troubles me that to this day Judith wants to maintain the illusion that Lee went to Mexico City. That troubles me profoundly.
And after I presented this, she came up to me and she said, wow, she's, I wish I could, I don't know what to say, Jim, because,
it's hard to admit when you're wrong.
But, the documents speak for themselves, okay? And he might have been there, at another time, whatever, doing this thing about taking a biological weapon, and, for Castro, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But, if we take it under the structure of the documents and everything that has been, written in the Warren Commission and the HSCA and everything, as far as I'm concerned, it never happened. And,
He didn't go there. I don't know where the hell he was during this period. If Judith's correct that he wasn't.
I know where he was. He was knocking on Silvio Odio's door, on September the 27th, because Silvio Odio was a very credible witness, and she said, hey, he came to my door, and he went with these two guys, Cuban guys, one was a Mexican-looking guy, Angel and Leopoldo and whatever, and they wanted.
But she was in Dallas.
Yeah. If you take Silvio Odio's testimony, into consideration, where when supposedly on September 27th he's in Mexico City, and she's the one actually that overturned the apple cart here, because that's when Gaten Fonzie, he with the HSCA, and they're going, wait a minute, what happened here? Silvio Odio, is saying a whole different thing, here, and also her sister Annie, and they're very credible witnesses, and September the 27th, he's supposed to be over there, but yet you cannot find any credible information or documents pertaining to the hotel or the buses and everything, and how he got there and how he got back, and there's a big, void there, so to speak, and that's why, when you put that together with this thing about Gerende, it sort of like builds up, as far as, I'm concerned, with the situation of if Lee really went to Mexico City.
Oh, was Judith more or less resigned to the fact that she'd been wrong in her belief?
I really couldn't answer that, I can't answer that,
It's difficult for people to admit they're wrong, but at least she didn't.
That's a very important question, Jim. I agree. Because the more information, and not only this one, but with the Lee Envoy and the Tarasovs, with the wiretapping operation, how the Tarasovs, said, hey, that's not Lee Oswald, on those wiretaps, on those tapes.
Remember how we had her on this show and how I explained to her that the only issue on which I had disagreed was whether Lee had gone to Mexico?
I know.
And she was so upset.
Yeah, and you had words. Yeah, I know.
And guess what, Dr. Fetchers? There's only one thing that I disagree with you about. Do you know what it is?
With me?
Yes. And all the JFK, there's only one thing.
Go ahead.
About John F. Kennedy trying to, do away with the Federal Reserve and, the notes that he had signed. I just really believe that was something that you did anyway. So that's all. Out of everything in JFK, and that's a lot of stuff, right?
You can still.
One thing.
Hey, Gary, you can still name at least 10 other enemies, people that wanted him dead, not necessarily.
Besides them.
Gary, I held one of those bills in my hand. It said United States.
Hold on. Don't move.
Red embossed imprint.
He's got one, huh? He's got one.
He's going to show a bill of his own.
Yeah, right here.
But Jack was going to follow through, Gary. Yeah.
Yeah, but the things that he did, here we go.
There you go. Hey.
That's good. That's good, Gary.
So look, we're talking about a vast sea of JFK knowledge here, and it's only one issue. I think we're doing okay. All right. So y'all want to call it here, fellas?
Collectible. That's definitely a collectible.
Yeah, I got it.
Well, Gary, I'm not conceding the point, mind you. I take it we have a disagreement, but it's not a resolution, right?
No, we disagree about it, and it's okay with me.
Yeah.
That's all right.
No, it's okay with me too, my friend. All right.
That's
Go ahead.
a pretty good ratio. So,
Larry, Larry, that was fascinating stuff. I love it.
Thank you.
We'll call it there. JFK number 236. And we'll be back with 237 next week.
In Dallas, Texas, 3 shots were fired at President Kennedy's motorcade.
That's what we were told. Most Americans never believed Lee Oswald was the lone gunman for excellent reasons. In fact, there were at least 6 shooters who fired from 8 to 10 shots or more who are identified here. We have, finally, the solution to the greatest murder mystery in history, laid out for the world to see, proof after proof after proof. Photos were faked, the body was changed, x-rays were altered, the home movies were fixed. 15 experts contribute to a 529-page book with 1,037 photos and diagrams in black and white and color.
Hi, this is Gary King. If you'd like JFK, who, how, and why, and would like to support the new JFK show, then go to patriotradiobooks.com. That's patriotradiobooks.com.